Welcome to the adventures of a modern American railroad boomer. Photos and commentary by Engineer Dennis. That's me. I got some terms you need to know. Bum, hobo, home guard, and most importantly, you have boomer. A boomer was a highly educated, highly trained individual about the turn of the 1900s that worked for the railroad and went from place to place, kind of like I do. I started out being interested in the maritime world. I tried my hand at commercial diving. I ended up being a commercial captain. That's what I do for a living. I'm a ship captain. I've had a lot of fun with it. These are some of the boats that I've driven over the last few years. It's fun being at the top, but it just was never satisfying. I needed to do something more. Went a lot of places, saw a lot of things, but in fact, I just loved trains. I started out by modeling trains, doing a lot of different things with the modeling, but that wasn't good enough either. So I applied for a scholarship at a place called Modoc Railroad Academy, and out of 5,600 people, I got chosen. Of course, my wonderful wife had a lot to say. Oh, no, there she is. There's my wife. She had to say yes before I could go, so I packed my bags up and I headed down about 5,000 kilometers to the Modoc Railroad Academy. And they had a lot of different kinds of equipment, from new stuff to old stuff. We went back and forth and back and forth. I learned an awful lot, but basically I just learned how to learn. Of course, what I was after was the bit of paper that said I knew what I was doing. And here's a happy Dennis on graduation day. And there it is, the bit of paper. So now that I have the bit of paper, what am I going to do with it? My first railroad job was with the White Pass and Yukon route in Alaska, Skagway, Alaska to be exact. What an amazing place. So I packed up from school and headed back to Alaska. There's a rich history at the White Pass and Yukon, having been built for the gold rush. They have some very interesting vintage equipment, all kinds of things. I ended up being conductor and brakeman, and here we are on the dock. Why do I love Alaska? Man, it's an amazing place. They did just about beat me to death, though. It was a hard summer. I was 15 years older than anybody else. So I decided to go someplace else. So the next railroad was the Leadville, Colorado and Southern for the next summer, so I packed up and headed down to Colorado to the high Rocky Mountains. This is a couple of shots of getting the line open in the spring. Yes, it's an amazing place. The problem with Leadville, for me anyway, is that the town is at 10,200 feet elevation, and we went up from there. Went up to about 11,000 feet. My body just hated it. Why did I want to go off and railroad? Well, mostly the people. It's so much fun working in the tourist industry. I just love it. There are a lot of characters out there. Well, this is 4th of July. The High Rockies never let you forget that it's the High Rockies, and 45 minutes later, it was 80 degrees, just like that. But not everyday railroading is fun or easy. What does a railroader do on his days off? Well, he goes to work at another railroad. During the first summer I was there in Leadville, I went off and worked at the Georgetown Loop. It was about an hour and a half away. The Georgetown Loop was built for mining to get the gold, lead, zinc, and copper out of the area. It has an amazing bridge, a lot of history involved. During the time I was there, I did a lot of different things. I was conductor, I took tickets, I did commentary, I was engineer. It was much more of an amusement park ride than Leadville was. Up and down the hill, up and down the hill. And there I am. Another thing I did on the way back and forth from Leadville to my home in Washington State is a place called the Golden Spike National Historic Site, almost exactly in the middle. So as I went back and forth, I would stop here for a week or two, or sometimes 3. They have a beautiful assortment of equipment they're all replicas, but they're as close as possible. And they just love to have people come and show up. And once a week they had the reenactment of the driving of the Golden Spike and the first transcontinental railroad. And I got to learn all kinds of stuff and actually get dirty. It was a wonderful experience, and this is what I did most of the time, keeping them clean. Once I realized that the Leadville altitude was going to kill me, I decided it was time to look around. The next railroad I worked for was the Mount Hood. It was only about 2.5 hours away from my house, and just an amazingly beautiful area. Unfortunately, During the summertime, they regularly have temperatures well over 100 degrees, and it just about beat me to death. Too hot for Dennis. So I went to the coast, went to the Oregon coast, went to work for the Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad. It's about 3.5 hours away from my house, and I ended up working for the Oregon Coast people for a number of summers. They have just amazing equipment. They have 3 active steam locomotives and 3 active diesels. One of their trips runs right along the ocean, which makes for great scenic looks, and the other one runs up into the mountains. Here's one of our double headers. We had 2 of the steam engines out working on this particular day. And there I am, working hard as an engineer on a steam locomotive. And here's the trip up into the mountains. 2 amazing different opportunities. But are they the only place? No way, man. My wonderful wife allows me to go off and do these railroad jobs as long as I don't have to take any money out of the bank. I've also worked for a number of volunteer operations, but they don't fill all the criteria. The Centralia-Chehalis Railroad is the closest one to my house. They're a wonderful weekend operation once in a while, so it didn't satisfy all of my needs, but it is a fun place to go and hang out. After playing with steam locomotives for a while, I realized that I needed more training. I just didn't know enough. So I packed off on a little vacation and headed down to California to the Roots of Motor Power. They are a volunteer operation that has lots of things other than just steam locomotives. And around we went, and boy did I ever learn a lot of stuff. Another operation I worked with was the Chalachi Prairie Railroad. Very nice bunch of people, but as they say, you can't get there from here. They're relatively close, flying miles from my house, but to get there, it took hours and hours and hours, so I didn't stay with them very long. So I was looking for some place to replace the Leadville, and I hit the jackpot. I applied for and was hired at the Grand Canyon Railroad. Now, getting off to these different places takes an awful lot of planning. You gotta get everything ready to go and packed up, and most importantly, you gotta take a few moments and say goodbye to all your friends and people that are around you. So I packed up and went down to Grand Canyon Railroad, 1,900 miles through the desert without air conditioning or cruise control. Why did I do it? Because I hit the jackpot of steam locomotives in the tourist railroad world. The 4960 is the best maintained machine in all of the country, and I get to play on it. Of course, they have other good stuff that also runs on the line. And here I am, trying to learn some stuff. Well, I must say this is the most real railroad that I've worked for, and there's just so many things to learn here. Well, that's okay. It gives me something to do. It keeps me from getting old. And why do I do it? Why do I work so hard? Well, of course, the keys to the kingdom. I just love these keys. It tells me that I'm doing something. So I've been a lot of different railroads and known a lot of different people over the years. Is this the last railroad I'll work at? I don't know. All I can say is, as long as there's rails that are heading off to somewhere or other, I'll probably be chasing them. So come and ride with me sometime and have some fun.